I am the first male in my daddy's line, going back to Angus Marshall Van Dyke, to live past the age of 57. I will turn 76, God willing, next August. I think for every human, as soon as you're old enough to understand things around you, you're conscious of death. You see it as a little one, you see a bug die or something like that. But then as you start living your life, your perception of death changes, and no one can tell you how you are going to feel about it. The journey to your death is a journey of learning about death. It's been a long journey. It's been a hard journey, but it's been a sweet journey in a way. I say sweet because of where I am now. And it's taken me 75 years to get there. But when I reach that final destination, I'm ready for it. You being here is a gift. Who gave it to you? Who gave you that gift? You connect with ancestors, you're connecting with yourself. I can trace my life all the way back to Charlemagne, but where did I first realize that I almost wasn't here? And that was probably with my great-grandpa. He left home in 1861, joined the Confederate Army. He fought in, I would say, every battle that the 13th Tennessee was in, but that's really not true because he was wounded, he was captured twice, and twice evidently he escaped. He could have died in any of those battlefields, but he didn't. Because he lived, there could be a James Van Dyke, and because of that, there could be a Neil Van Dyke, and because of that, there's me. I spent many years as an electrical engineer, and when I retired, I began my second love, which had always been history. When you get to share what you know with other people, and they're paying you money, what more could you ask for? It's a big happy group.
Hey, yeah.
Good. One of the most fun parts of doing this type of work is being able to meet people.
We came all the way from San Diego.
San Diego. I grew up, and I would go with my dad some to take up timber, and I saw him working and how he was able to establish that interpersonal relationship. El Paso, wonderful. I got an El Paso connection in this story. He had this just natural connection out in West Texas, town of El Paso.
Marty Robbins.
I've tried to keep that with me. For some strange reason, and I do not know why, they're making a film about me, okay? Who's seen The Wizard of Oz? You remember the scene? Toto runs over and pulls the curtain back. He says, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. So that's the way we're going to treat Adam. Is that okay? Pay no attention to him.
Just make sure you get my good angle.
He doesn't have to worry about me because I have no good angle. Thank you very much. It's going to be fun. I want us to have fun. That's the main thing. My name is David Van Dyke, and I will be your host. Yeah, cemeteries are kind of, I guess, strange places to say that I enjoy going to cemeteries, but I do. So I'm standing beside the grave of my great-grandfather, Angus Marshall Van Dyke. One of his sons was James Perry Van Dyke. He married a local girl. They had 4 children. One of those boys was my daddy, Neil Van Dyke. The other boy was my uncle, Angus, name for this man right here. And it was Uncle Angus that first gave to me my love of history. He was my first mentor. I don't want to belittle my dad at all. He was a role model in many ways. But it was my Uncle Angus that really formed me. Uncle was always getting us into things like we'd take up looking for arrowheads, got boxes of them, things like that. He had this constant need to learn. I could sit and listen to him for hours. He could craft a story, and that's where I got my first introduction to Civil War, was my Uncle Angus. Come here, boy, let's go Shiloh. Let me show you where Grandpa was. We walked around where he was that day. I remember coming here so many times with my uncle, and it started early. When you're 6 years old, a battlefield, thinking about the soldiers and running, and I would pick up sticks and pretend like I was charging that battery. It was, yeah, run up there, get that cannon, get on that cannon, you know? But he was making me feel at home here. He was teaching me. He was teaching me to learn, teaching me to feel the place. As I got older, it would get a little bit more serious. He would be telling me what Grandpa had done, and this, that, and the other. Angus Marshall Van Dyke, he and his brother, his younger brother, named Isaac Newton Van Dyke, were here in this battle. He said Newton and I were separated that first day. So that night, he found Newton at a field hospital. And he said they were just getting ready to amputate his leg. And my great-grandfather, Angus, said he held the light for the surgeon. He had to get back, so he left, and he never saw him again. He probably died that night. Sun came up the next morning. He had a battle to fight. Angus got hit. One of those 58 caliber mini balls went through him right there. Two brothers, same battlefield. One never left the battlefield alive, but one did. Angus Marshall, he survived. After the battle, most of the Confederate dead were just gathered together and buried in trenches. Just get them in the ground. Otherwise, they're gonna lay here and rot. So each one of these burial trenches, to our family at least, is sacred because Newton might be here. My Uncle Angus would always talk to Newton as if he were in that trench. You know, he'd say, well, Newton, not sure if you're there, but if you are, just to let you know we're here thinking about you.
When did you first experience death in your life?
I was up at Mom and Dad's, and Granny and Angus were at their house, you know, which was only a mile away. And Granny called, she said, something's wrong with Angus, something's wrong with Angus. And he'd gotten up from supper, walked into the living room, laid down on the couch, and died. Gone. And I never will forget, he was laying on the couch, and we got there, you know, and everybody's running in. And I remember running up and looking at him. He was looking at me. His eyes were open. He was looking at me. And he died when I was 13. I guess I was at least 15 before I finally would say, he's gone. And when you're 15, you're limited to what you can think and how you can rationalize death. You don't have the toolbox. I think most young people, they do the best they can. And if they're lucky, they'll have somebody older to help them along the way. Sometimes you just need somebody to hold you and let you cry and cry with you. And I really didn't have that, except my grandmama. She said, now you remember when you and Uncle went fishing that day? She'd help me walk through those memories. I still remember her for that.
What other sorts of things, like growing up as a kid, did you like to get into? Sports, anything like that?
Sports, no. I was small, and I didn't do sports well. But I started very early loving radios, you know, and spark gaps and things like that. And Angus told me one day, he said, boy, I can see there's two things you really love. One of them's history, and the other's electricity. He said, I'm gonna give you a little advice. History ain't gonna pay your bills. He said, you keep up with that electricity. And that's what I did. That's my college graduation picture right there.
Oh my goodness. Nerd.
Look at those nerdy black glasses. I got to NASA. Of course, I worked for Lockheed Martin, but it was for NASA. And the shuttle program, it was just, every day was a little mini crisis, you know. We submitted an article to this magazine. It's one of the national magazines on spectroscopy. We told them about our system and how we could look at the plume and what it was telling us spectroscopically. And one of the pictures we'd sent them was this one. And it wound up on the front cover. That's the Space Shuttle main engine testing at the A1 test stand in Stennis, where my systems were. I don't want to overplay what I was doing as far as the safety. The mission depended on us, no. But we were a little part of it. But we were an important part of it. And I guess it was about a year after we lost Columbia. And from that point on, even though things that I was doing were not super critical and everything, every part of what is being done was important for those 7 people sitting on top of that shuttle. That self-doubt starts creeping in. I'm losing my touch, you know. Came to the point where it finally caught up with me. So I didn't take care of myself. I don't know how to say it other than just say it. I couldn't do it anymore. The problems that I went through, there was a point in time where I didn't want to live anymore. My wife at that time, Janet, she saw it too. She said, we need to leave, don't we? And I said, yeah. She said, we need to go back to Tennessee. I said, yeah. Moved to Columbia. Gee, that's pretty close to Franklin. That's where Grandpa was. Let me go find out a little bit more about that. And then I started hanging out there, and that was a way to spend my days. The people that I met at the Carter House and at Carton, y'all are a big part of saving my life. What more could you want than meeting as many wonderful people as I have met than our guests, and working with the most unbelievable group of people that I've ever had the pleasure of working with. It gave me another family. It also opened up a whole vista of things that, hey, I want to be around to do this. A lot of memories here, Alan. Frank saved my life, absolutely. Through that 1-hour tour and you're not moved, you will be when you walk in this building. And if you're not, they might as well go ahead and bury you because you're gone when you look at that. And I think about Angus coming, he came in right here. What Grandpa would have seen, hundreds, literally hundreds of men lay on this field, most of them dead, many of them dying, even though he walked away with no physical harm. He took that scene with him, and I'm sure he never forgot it. They want nothing more than to kill him as he races into this yard. And quite frankly, all he wanted to do was kill them. It's hard to wrap your brain around it. It's even harder to wrap your heart around it. If he had died right here, you know who else would have died right here? Me. Because I would have never been born. I learned very quickly that I have to separate the Confederate soldiers from the Confederate cause. I may not agree with the cause, and I don't agree with the cause because I understand it. And I admit it, and I accept it. His honor that I celebrate is not his honor as a Confederate soldier, just as a soldier. You know, Angus could have been here. He could be one of these markers. And if he were here, I would have been here too. I think he would look at this cemetery, probably shed a few tears, but I think he would have been at peace with himself. In tracing Angus Marshall's wife, it drew me to Elkton. One reason I enjoyed being a member of the Elkton Historical Society was I'd go to a meeting, and it'd be me and about 10 women. But I just showed up, and this vision of loveliness walked in, you know. And this was the slate of officers. I don't remember what year it is, but there's Rebecca. She and I were two people who were at exactly the right place in their respective lives to come together. It was meant to be, I think. Yeah, she was very, very, very special. The last Christmas party my Rebecca went to, you remember? You remember that little? Oh, I don't care. They can talk. Good. You remember that little red dress she wore? Yeah. Was she a knockout?
Yep, she was.
She was so sick, Christy.
I didn't know.
She said, I'm going. I said, okay. We had so much fun that night. In the Lenten season of the year she died, I said, well, baby, what we're going to give up for Lent, you know? And she said, I don't know what I'm going to give up. I said, what? She said, doctors. At that point, she was through with it. She was preparing herself in her way to go. You approach it together, even though it's only one of you taking the journey. I miss her. I miss her.
That's fine.
Sorry.
No.
That was her, by the way. That was her.
Saying, yeah. I miss you too.
Yeah. I don't know. When you're 6 years old, you know, you're 17 years old, death is somewhere way out here. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen, you know, but you don't think about it. I came upon this poem when I was about 15 years old. It was written by a boy that was 17 years old when he wrote it. His name was William Cullen Bryant. And he wrote a poem titled Thanatopsis, translates view of death. Anytime I have any doubt, I go back and read that. Listen to this. When thoughts of the last bitter hour come like a blight over thy spirit, and sad images of the stern agony, the shroud, the pall, the breathless darkness, and the narrow house. All that tread the globe are but a handful to the tribes that slumber in its bosom. Thou shalt lie down with patriarchs of the infant world, with kings, the powerful of the earth, the wise, the good, fair forms and hoary seers of ages past, all in one mighty sepulchre. The hills, rock-ribbed and ancient as the sun, veils stretching in pensive quietness between the venerable woods, rivers that flow in majesty, and the complaining brooks that make the meadows green, and poured round all, old oceans, gray and melancholy waste. I'm sure you're familiar with a poem by Dylan Thomas. Do not go gentle into that good night. You remember that one? Old age, burn and rave at close of the day. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Well, I got my apologies to Mr. Thomas. That's not the way I want to go. The way I want to go is the way Cullen Bryant ends this poem. Approach thy grave like one who wraps the drapery of his couch about him and lies down to pleasant dreams. This is my stone. This is where my earthly remains, ashes, will be spread. I knew this is where I wanted to be. I had a very good friend several years ago when I put this stone up and would come out here and she told me, that's morose, you know. And I told her, it's not a sad place, it's a happy place. If you come out here on Whit Sunday every year, and after the service is over, we come out here, we got tables set, we have 200 or 300 people, food for 1,000, and the whole rest of the afternoon, this place is covered with kids running around. What a place to be. So a lady named Iris DeMint that wrote a song many years ago. It's called I'm Gonna Let the Mystery Be. Everybody's worried about where they all come from. Everybody's wondering about where they're gonna go when the whole thing's done. No one knows for certain, so it's all the same to me. I think I'll just let the mystery be. And I guess that's what I'm gonna do. Let it be.